Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The In-Between. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's focus on the case, because obviously Cassie's visions of it was kind of pretty crazy. First she gets locked in her car. Well, first she sees the bobblehead, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. And then it gets creepy because it starts moving its eyes. It's like, okay. And then it gets super creepy because it starts screaming and then it melts. It's like, Jesus. She gets trapped in the car and starts burning. So that sucks. She gets burned at least. Well, in her vision, she gets burned twice. So that sucks. Because you didn't even see it the second time it happens. She's just like, Jesus, I hate it. I hate it so much. That sensation of feeling like it's real and stuff. And then the realization of no, it's not. And it's just in my head, to have that snap back to reality is probably always got to be the hardest thing. But nevertheless, this particular case deals with people's cars. It's first it's this dude named Neil. His car kind of goes up. He got locked inside. The car explodes. He dies inside. Number one suspect is his ex-wife Lydia, because they're in this complicated thing of he wants to remodel their house to basically sell it, but then Lydia doesn't want it to be sold. And so obviously Lydia was like, oh, I haven't been around there because he's changed the passcodes or whatever. But it's a little bit before the car went up, she dropped by there with her golf instructor. She said she was looking for clubs, so it's like, oh, she's number one suspect, until she dies in a very similar way to her husband. It's like, okay. Then it turns out Jake, the golf instructor, is not a suspect, so it's like, where do we go from here? Well, there's a dude that was looking into everything. His name is Gio. He's a contractor, but it turns out was it chlorine? The chemical used as an accelerant for all these fires, these murders, was what he uses to fight back ants, which is what a whole bunch of bugs and stuff is what Cassie saw in a vision, so that ties that together. And it's like Gio apparently was having an affair with Lydia, so it's like, he's saying Lydia got me this expensive watch to pay off the money that Neil owes, but it could be switched to look like, well, actually she gave you that watch to murder her ex-husband, and then you murdered her to cover all the bases. But it's like, no, that's not the case. But he has an alibi, and just things don't line up between he has alibis for the murders and stuff like that. But then it's like, okay, he goes back to work. Boom, an explosion happens. He was the potential third victim. Lucky for him, he survived. Granted, he's going to get a lot of burns out of it, which in the grand scheme of things, its situation is going to get much worse, but we'll get to that soon enough. So it's like, okay, who's behind all this? Well, his assistant basically points out the ex-wife is kind of a little whoa, because basically in her mind, she was super pissed when she found out about Lydia and Gio's affair. Even though they've been divorced for years, there's been some part of her brain that was like, no. We're going to get back together. And even Gio kind of thought that, but obviously he'd even talked about the fact that he secretly didn't want the affair to come out, because he was secretly suing his wife for full custody of their son because he doesn't think she's stable. And stuff in this episode kind of proves it, because it's like, oh, at first you're like, wow, is she the killer? And then lo and behold, it's like, no, because apparently it might be her son, because he literally throws a Molotov cocktail at Damien. Damien luckily gets out the way. It's like, jeez, dude. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, are we going to get some crazy situation? Maybe he's possessed by a ghost or something? It's like, no, he's just a little kid in a mentally kind of borderlining abusive situation. Basically, his mother's kind of a wreck. Her neediness and kind of, it's like, oh, I need Gio to be part of the family, and she kind of takes it on the son of like, oh, you're worthless, you don't love me, which is like, yeah, I do love you, but she doesn't believe me. And it's like his desperate need to please his mom. It's like, oh, I need to hurt these people. Neil was a complete accident because he got the wrong car. He meant to kill Lydia because her car was there at the time, but he got the wrong car, ended up killing Neil, but corrected that by killing Lydia. He didn't hurt his dad because, no, I love my dad. My mom asked me what to do, and I told her how to do it, because for him, it's like his need to be like, I'm not going to do it to my dad because I have no personal issue with my dad, but my mom does, and it's like, I want to do whatever I can to help her. But even the cadence in which he talks, so it's like, yeah, it helped her out. She was always sad and stuff like that, but it got her to shut up, and it's like, that's a twisted family dynamic. And it's like, okay, so it's like, what about the son? Like, yeah, it's desperate need to please his mom and whatnot, but it's like, can he be rehabilitated? And it's like, maybe. It's like, that's what I'm talking about. Gio's got it rough because not only did your wife kind of orchestrate all that, basically your son's the one who killed the woman. Wasn't even really having an affair. You were divorced already. The woman you were having a relationship with, the woman you were in love with, and he took that from you. And it's also bad enough. It's like, yeah, your ex-wife, you were trying to get your ex-wife away from your son, away from your ex-wife because of kind of things like this, which is kind of crazy because like when you first get introduced to her, you would have never guessed that it was something like that. But now it kind of makes sense because the way she's like, no, you got the wrong person. It's because it's like, no. She was being defensive of her husband, like, no, you got the wrong person. He's not involved in all of this because she doesn't want to get caught up in all this because obviously she wants to protect him because it's like, oh, we'll be happy to be a family. That's also a reason why, he's kind of, the son, Gabe, is kind of pissed at the mom because it's like, yeah, I knew everything she was saying was a lie, that he wasn't going to come back to us as a whole family, to be fair. It's, like I said, it's definitely going to be interesting to see if there is a happy ending for that because he's such a young kid to have orchestrated. Because the only reason why he knows how to do it is because he learned it from his dad, and it's like, that's also got to be a little twisted because you played a part in killing your lover because you taught your son how to do it. I know I'm overthinking it, but it's still just wild and crazy that the case is like that. Twisted case. But then on the other side of things, you have Lydia. God, I said, what? Where the hell am I getting Lydia from? Right, Lydia's the name of the ex-wife. Right. I was like, where am I getting her from? But you have Cassie meeting a new girl who's working at the bar. Her name's Andrea, but we call her Andy. Interestingly enough, played by Molly Quinn. You might recognize, she played Castle's daughter in the TV show Castle. He played his daughter, Alexis. I had to look her name up because I could not remember. I recognized it immediately. I was like, is that Castle's daughter? But I couldn't remember Alexis, which is so crazy to me because looking at her, it feels like it's been ages. But it's no. Castle literally ended like more than 3 years ago. It hasn't even been that long, but it feels like ages because I haven't even caught reruns. I'm not going to go into it. It could be a whole tangent. I have a complicated relationship with the show Castle. I loved that show, but a combination of the series finale, which extenuating circumstances connected to it, as well as just like stuff outside of the show itself. It's more like on-set stuff. It's just kind of soured the show. So I can't even enjoy it anymore just because of certain things. So I don't even feel the enjoyment to even rewatch older episodes just because it's a whole thing. Like I said, I've talked about in the past. It's a whole complicated thing. So for me, it just feels like ages, that disconnect with Castle now. But it's just like, holy crap, it's like, dude. She was also in the movie, I couldn't remember the movie off the top. I want to say it was We Are the Millers. With Jason Sudeikis and Jennifer Aniston. They were pretending to be a family. And, so that whole thing, that movie. So regardless, I'm going on, like I said, a huge tangent. I do apologize. But, what was so interesting is I basically, every time she was around Andy, Cassie would get a headache. I'm like, what the hell is up with that? And she's like, oh, I get headaches. And I'm like, what? And then Ed shows up and he's like, oh, because of your powers, you sense evil. And it's like, oh, that girl might not be, you might kind of realize that evil comes in many different forms. I'm like, what's this all about? It's like, she's evil? Would not expect it. But it keeps happening throughout the episode. Every time she's around Andy, she gets more and more headaches. Lo and behold, we find out that basically looking into her past, she got Tom to look into it. Turns out she had a stalker that she killed in self-defense. I saw the stalker's like profile picture on like the computer or whatever. I was like, wait, isn't that? And later on, when we get a better look at him, the stalker's name is Max. It's the actor who played Philip in the TV show Travelers, which if you've never seen the TV show Travelers. It's a great time travel show. It's on Netflix. 3 seasons, canceled, but still worth watching, trust me. So there's that. So I was like, what? I was like, that's crazy because as Philip, he has long hair, and Philip's like the one thing I've kind of known this actor for. So it's kind of crazy seeing him with short hair and everything, but regardless, that's another thing. But it's like, that's what Cassie was sensing the entire time. It wasn't the evil intent from Andy herself, but the evil that was him. And that's also what was causing the headaches for Andrea as well. So I guess it was a combination of like, it seemed like, his evil, I guess like evil malicious spirits just literally have a sickening effect on people. Part of me was wondering could Cassie just be sympathetic to it, but I'm sure it probably might even hit her even harder because she's in tune with spirits and stuff like that. But because Andy is the direct link to it, so it probably hits her just as hard. So it was just kind of an interesting thing. Side note: that actor is creepy as hell when he gets into his creepy bad, because he was never creepy as Philip. He's kind of like, oh yeah, like the nerdy dude part of the team to a certain extent. I mean, everyone's kind of, Trevor was probably more nerdy than Philip when you actually break it down. I mean, Trevor was the old man in the situation, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, he didn't have that element to him. He's just calm, cool, and collected, as the historian and everything. Once again, it means nothing to you if you haven't seen Travelers, but it's just interesting to see, and it's just kind of like, oh, don't we all look for that? Love that. Basically kind of alluding to like, oh, Andy is kind of my one and only, like the fact of the matter is even death can't separate us. Like, don't worry, we won't be around long. She's going to go on this trip with her mom and everything, and we'll be gone then, kind of talking for both of them. It's like she can never admit her feelings for me, and a love that transcends death and stuff like that. He's got such a creepy smile. I'm like, dude, you're really good at that creep factor. Like I said, didn't see any hint of that. So as I'm about to say Trevor, as Philip. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to see him, that side of him. So Cassie has to find a way to handle this, which is interesting because she talks to Melinda about this, which is like, I like that. It was set up last episode, and now we kind of get payoff of just kind of like the whole thing of like, okay, you have, a friend you can turn to with these type of things, like, someone you could just openly talk to about this whole situation. But she brought up an interesting idea. She's like, well, if I were in her situation, I'd get my big brother to basically deal with it. And that Cassie thinks about Ed, because Ed pops up again. It's like, yo, I'm going to be the one that you end up relying on. And in fact, he is. He's like, okay. So it's like, it's interesting for him. It's like, you leave the dead to the dead. And so I love that whole thing of like, now are you ready to get wild, Cottontails? So that was kind of interesting. Because normally, I guess the only way to get rid of a spirit, because Andy tried the whole cleansing thing, but it seems like it didn't work. I guess in this universe, it's like, maybe if the spirit's malicious and latched on enough, doing that's not going to be enough. Maybe it's supposed to represent not just in this circumstances, but any circumstance in general. It doesn't work. It seems like it probably leans more in that direction of things. But it was interesting. Cassie ends up telling Andy, and Andy's like, "What? No, you're crazy." But then like she's like, "Yeah, the cleansings you do." It's like, even though you don't want to admit it, there's some part of you that kind of felt it, and it's just like she admits it. And so Cassie's like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna help you get rid of him forever." So it turns into this interesting situation where it's like she's telling her this is all part of some cleansing spell, but there's actually another plan in place here to kind of deal with it without really giving her all the details. And apparently Ed says that this thing involves them going back to the spot he dies. At the very least, it works better where you die. So what happens is Ed ends up grabbing him, flinging him off the edge, and they fall to their deaths, and he lands where he landed when he died, and it seems like he dies again. So my mind immediately goes like, okay, spirits can die potentially, or at the very least they get pushed more over into the realm of the afterlife, and they can no longer interact with this realm anymore. They're no longer stuck in the in-between potentially. So it's either like you have to kill a spirit, and for them to fully completely go away, you have to kill them in the spot where they died, or is it a situation, because I'm about to say like it has to be in a spot where you died, because I was about to say like maybe it's just you have to recreate their death. Is that how you permanently get rid of them? But it's like maybe it's a combination of recreating their death specifically in the spot they died. That's where I'm chalking that up to. Like I said, they left that very open-ended, just kind of up to your own interpretation what that all meant, which is kind of an interesting thing, because even then it's like, oh, what happens when spirits kind of move on? They just disappear. You turn around, they're gone. There's no, because even Cassie brought up like no bright light or nothing. With Max, he landed, he's dead, but then like his body kind of disintegrates into like this darkness. It's almost like, okay, dear, is that you dying as a spirit fading to nothingness? Or is that supposed to just represent the fact is that you're stuck I mean, I thought like the in-between represented limbo, but maybe there's a more like purgatorial type of limbo, different, that is kind of its own world, kind of in Supernatural where purgatory is literally its own world. Maybe it's a similar thing. Maybe that's supposed to represent him going to hell, where it's like you don't see people going to the good side of the afterlife. Maybe you don't get to see people go to the bad place, and maybe that's just kind of the closest you'll get to it. No flames and stuff like that. Like with good, there's no lights and horns and stuff, whatever. So that in itself is very, very interesting. I'm so curious to see what this means for Cassie and Ed's relationship. I guess he's going to be the one kind of filling her in more about this world, because there's still stuff that she doesn't know about. Like that, it's something. I guess he's going to be like her. How, like I said, I was so hoping to keep this dynamic up, because it's a weird situation. Because it's like he has his ulterior motives for being there, but he's still a very bad guy. Because I even love the fact is, it's like, oh yeah, like me and Max got to talking. And I was like, he's oh, I did a little stalking in my day, but him, oh, he's a creep. That dude's on a whole other level, which is saying a lot coming from Ed. And so just the dynamic of him kicking around with Cassie. And let's not forget, she still hasn't told Tom or Damien or definitely Brian about this situation. So that's still kind of her little secret. But I think that that's going to cause issues on his own. Like, he's an ally for now, but maybe when he doesn't get his way, or to get his way thing, that dynamic will potentially change. It's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Essentially, the devil you know to face all the other devils out there. So I'm wondering, is that what the dynamic of the relationship is going to be like going forward, the whole Ed and Cassie dynamic? Either way, luckily, Cassie's willing to do whatever she can to help, give on Andy peace of mind, and does. Like, she feels like, oh, for the first time, like a weight's been lifted off their shoulder. She can kind of breathe for the first time. So there's that side of things. Another side of things is Sally. Cassie starts seeing Sally, but she's like, I've never seen her before, but she's not dead. So why? And then Tom describes it as a fetch. It's something he had heard before from, what was it, either his mom or his grandmom, about the whole aspect of a fetch kind of being like a premonition. But it's like, it can mean a premonition of death, or it can mean a premonition of a long life. And they don't really tell Damien at first, because they don't want to get his hopes up, or rather they don't want to dash his hopes, or whatever the case may be, because the doctor knows, it's like, oh, there's some brainwave activity, like it goes up and then it goes down. So I think it's part of her that was kind of fighting to bring her, like, her spirit to someone to know. Like, she is kind of putting it out there, like probably pushing, like her brain activity is at its highest. It's her pushing her spirit to kind of resonate with the universe and manifest somewhere. In this case, the Cassie. And we end up seeing a vision of, she found the ring. The day she was packing up for her trip and everything, she found the ring, but she put it back so that Damien could, surprise her with the proposal and everything. But sadly, this is all representing the fact is that she dies. And, Damien was still holding out hope, and, believing that, hopefully she'll fight her way back and everything would be good. But, everything kind of went the opposite, But Cassie's able to ease that pain at least a little bit by telling him, because for him, the whole thing that was in the back of his mind is like, maybe she, I wish I had proposed to her when I had a chance. Now she'll really never know how much I love her. But it's like, no, she does know, because she found the ring. She knows how much you love her and that you were going to propose to her. And that in itself means a lot, So I just thought that was kind of beautiful. It's a very sad note to end the episode on, but it's still like a very beautiful note in general. So, like I said, a lot of very interesting things went down. So I'm very interested to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.